Hi everyone, I'm Jan Shagda of Clarity Coaching. I help clients and companies be at their best by paying attention to what's truest and most important for them personality-wise. So today we are talking about Enneagram 5s and spiritual development. We'll talk about their social style, their center on the Enneagram, a spiritual discipline, and a prayer posture that will all help 5s develop. So let's start with the social style. The social style for the 5 is withdrawn style. It's the same as style 4 and 9. So the advice for 4, 5s, and 9s is all the same on this. Withdrawn is the tendency that when you're faced with a problem or just a challenge, you take a step back instinctively to gather information, to see what's the best road forward, and then once you've gathered your thoughts and your data, you then move forward. So it's instinctual, okay, let me get the lay of the land type energy. So that's the positive side of it. The downside is that withdrawal actually creates a bit of a disconnection from the physical or the body. So it's really important for 5s as well as 4s and 9s to reconnect to their physical experience of spirituality. So ways to do this that would be easy would be things like mind-body exercises, yoga, prayer postures. Any of the prayer postures we're talking about in this series would be excellent. Combining any kind of prayer or meditation with movement, or even something simple like if you're reading a spiritual text, instead of just reading it mentally, saying it out loud, or tracing it with your finger, or maybe even sketching or writing out what you're understanding from that text would all be ways to engage the body versus keeping it in the mind and heart. So that's the social style. The center for style 5, the investigator, is the head center. 5s, 6s, and 7s on the Enneagram are all in the head center, and that just means that the dominant way that they get information from the world is through thoughts. What makes sense, logic, pros and con lists, those sorts of things. So all people in the head center naturally experience God within more frequently than the opposite, God outside. So they're kind of the opposite of the heart center. If you remember, we talked about the heart center people needing to experience God within more. Head center folks, 5, 6s, and 7s, need to experience God in the outer world more. So it probably won't surprise you to learn that 5s get a double dose here of connecting to the body, if you know much about 5s. So with the head center exercises, experiencing God outside would look like just engaging the senses. So if we're thinking about traditional Christian spirituality, ways you might do that, if you think about Catholicism, they have the incense, they have the Eucharist, which is something you're physically eating, they have worship, which you're hearing, they have different, standing up and sitting down, different rituals and things like that. Those would all be ways to engage the body. So if you're not an organized religion person, that's no problem. Ways to do this on your own with whatever spiritual practices you like would be to engage the 5 senses. So like we talked about with reading, don't just read something, but what can you see, touch, taste, smell, hear with those experiences, with those spiritual exercises. And the more you can connect to that, the more rounded out your spiritual experience will be. So the spiritual discipline for the 5 is fellowship, which is just the act of sharing your spiritual experience with others and being in some sort of community. It's something that usually doesn't come very naturally to 5s, which, as you probably picked up about any of the spiritual disciplines in this series, it's often the most difficult thing for that person to do. But 5s really benefit from not just being the person observing, the person knowing and seeing about others, but being the one who's known and seen, and that's what fellowship creates. So finding any way you can to be more involved in sharing your life in a communal way with people. So they really understand spiritually, what your experiences are. So that's the spiritual discipline for 5s. And finishing up with the prayer posture, which is a simple one. It's just palms open. It's the opposite gesture would be this, like holding on, clenching, grabbing, not letting go. So the opposite is just kind of release. And the thought with that prayer posture for fives is, I don't need to store, I don't need to retain or keep what I have. There's a natural flow in and out of everything in life, whether that's resources, energy. In my experience, what's required for me is just to be present and allow. So the perspective or the energy would be in allowing, not retaining, storing, keeping, collecting. So hopefully that's clear for everyone. Love to hear your comments or feedback on this blog. All you fives out there, if there's something spiritually that works really effectively for you that you want to add, please do. And we'll see you next week for Enneagram 6s. Thanks. See you then.